The following story was sent to us via email, and the victim would like to remain anonymous and has requested that I read his story on his behalf. Here is his story. I wish to remain anonymous for my story that I'd like to share with everyone, since I happen to be the male victim of a scam that took place some time ago last year. I was 33 years old at the time, and I happen to have a mild form of autism which mainly affects my social skills and daily routine. And I also tend to have a really difficult time trying to get a job on my own. I primarily live in the same house as my mother, who is currently in her mid-50s. But I'm actually an independent guy who does know how to take care of himself really well when at home alone. And one of the main reasons for me not wanting to move out is because I have a couple of pet dogs that I'm able to help take care of while my mother regularly goes to work almost every day, to which I would basically take them out, feed them, clean up after them constantly whenever they make a mess on the floor, and it kind of feels like a job that I'm responsible for due to me being the only one who stays at home most of the time. I have been able to receive Social Security benefits each month. Sometime after I had graduated from high school, I had gotten a part-time job at the local Dairy Queen, to which I was actually able to hold on to for a couple of years. But I found myself being able to rely on my monthly income that I get from my Social Security after being let go by my supervisor at the same time ever since. I have found myself trying to keep busy. However, I can, such as drawing, playing video games, watching movies, or even doing chores around the house every day as a result. Over time, though, I started to find myself becoming rather lonely, since all of my siblings and cousins from both sides of my family who are all grown up and have just gotten married and or spouses and live on their own. I'm probably the only person from either side of my family who is not married. In fact, I've never even had a girlfriend or been on a date in my entire life, mainly because I don't know how to ask someone for anything like that. And I've never been the type of guy who deals with rejection so easily while also having a routine lifestyle on a daily basis. And so, I decided to try my hand at online dating, which is something that I've actually been wanting to do for some time now, but I don't feel like I want to pay a monthly fee to find a girl who is right for me. Luckily, I was able to discover a free dating site known as Plenty of Fish, or POF for short, and I'd actually been using the site for about a year while checking it regularly. Then, one day, I was able to meet an attractive woman who said she is 28 years old, and after checking her profile on the site, and it said that she lived in Evansville, which is only about 30 miles over from where I live. So, I decided to greet her with a message while complimenting the photos that she had posted of herself. And sure enough, she had responded back to me in a friendly manner, as we were able to engage with a chat on the site. She told me that her name was Rose, and she found me to be very nice and sweet after being able to introduce myself to her, telling her all sorts of things about me. Shortly afterwards, Rose then suggested that I exchange phone numbers with her, so that we would have to communicate on the site, especially after she asked if I could become her boyfriend, to which I eagerly said yes. Now, please keep in mind that this was before I had learned that falling in love with someone who truly cares about you is something that actually takes a lot of time and patience, and that true romances don't actually happen so quickly, or as might have you believe. Especially since I had mentioned earlier, I've never dated anyone before in my life, so I don't know any better at the time. Anyway, I soon believed that she was able to work as a fashion model for a company that was supposedly in California. Since the phone number that she had exchanged with me had the area code for Los Angeles, which really confused me at first because I expected her phone number to have the area code of Evansville, but she then told me that she is currently residing in California while still being from Evansville. So I played along with it for the time being. She was then able to tell me about her ex-boyfriend who was quite abusive and harsh towards her to the point where she was able to break up with him, and she was glad that she had met me due to me being very nice and understanding towards her. She also told me about her granny, who is supposedly her only living family member that cares for her since she doesn't have a mother or a father by her side to care for anymore. And she even told me that her granny was also quite happy to know all about me despite not being able to see what she looked like in any way. As for Rose herself, She was able to take a smartphone picture of herself while chatting with me over the phone, and I had actually become aware of scammers using stolen pictures of other people and fake profiles they had created on various websites around that time. Unlike those pictures, however, I knew for sure that these particular pictures that she shared with me were totally legit, because one such picture that she took of herself holding up a sign written with my name on it saying that she loved me, and she also took some pictures of herself working out at the local gym after I asked if I could see some pictures of her at the gym, which she did. Around this time, our conversations were getting pretty nice and good, and I don't mind being able to share some of the things about myself while keeping much of myself private and out of it. When I told her about me living in the same house as my mother, she decided to offer a deal with the company that she worked for, which she claimed also helped disabled people such as myself find jobs and homes on their own, and in order to do so, I would have to transfer some money from my bank account to the company while providing the transfer information to the bank. And I was even given an email message with the information used for the transfer. After looking up the name of the person to send the money to, however, I then realized that the name of the person to transfer the money to, Emmanuel Ibo, actually happens to be one of the scammers that I learned is often used in Nigerian scams. And after hearing all about some of the various money scams that were done by Nigerians in recent years, but I didn't even know about dating scams at the time, or even the fact that I would eventually become pulled into one the whole time without even knowing it. And so after looking at the email message, I let Rose know that this was obviously a scam, and that I didn't want any part of it in any way while refusing the offer. This caused her to become quite unhappy with me by sending me a lot of angry texts explaining that the company she works for is not involved with any scam, and that she told the boss about what I told her, which resulted in her being suspended for a whole day. I then received an email message from what I believed was her boss telling me about what happened, and that he threatened to sue me for such accusations about the company being run by scammers. I felt really bad about what happened. Since I'd never been sued by anyone before, or even arrested in my entire life, I decided to email him an apology about what I said, and that I didn't mean for Rose to be suspended because I was just trying to be cautious with my bank information. Sure enough, he was able to accept my apology and told me that Rose is no longer suspended from the company after our recent exchange of messages. Sometime afterwards, Rose told me that the company she worked for was having a test for all the models to participate in, to which the person with the highest score would be able to win a free car, and she decided to give it to me as a gift for being her boyfriend. At first I was rather hesitant to accept the gift of a car. However, due to the fact that I've never actually driven anything other than a moped in my entire life, she insisted that I keep the car, because she then would hire a driving instructor to help me with the driving whenever we were able to meet in person. As a result, I decided to go ahead and accept such an offer, and I also wanted it to be kind of a surprise for my mother. Rose then let me know that in order to prepare for the test, she would need some digital books to look at via Google Play, and she asked me to purchase $200 worth of Google Play cards to help pay for them, which should have been an obvious red flag for me straight from the beginning, since I eventually learned that scammers were able to sucker people such as myself into having them buy them gift cards from things like iTunes and Amazon, and of course Google Play, the latter of which I ended up buying the most. At the time, I had a little over $2,000 saved up in my bank account, which I originally planned on using to buy some things for myself, such as a new moped and a laptop computer. But I didn't mind having to spend some of the money to help her out, especially since I'm able to get plenty of money at the beginning of each month through Social Security Disability to help me on my monthly budget while saving some if my bank account for something special every now and then. I was able to go ahead and purchase some Google Play cards at the local CVS store in my hometown, and she told me to take pictures of the codes after having them scratched off so that she can be able to use them for herself. I'd admit I was actually reluctant to do something like this. I wasn't exactly sure if submitting card codes in such a manner was illegal or not, but she told me it was perfectly safe. So I went ahead and did it, and I was told over time, Rose told me that she managed to get the highest score on the test that she took, to which I was quite proud of her for passing in flying colors, and that I felt like I had done such a good deed. However, She then told me that the test she took was only the first part of the contest and that she would need to take another one in order to finally win the car for me as promised. This, of course, means that she would need more digital books to help her study, and that the books that she needed are a bit more expensive than the ones she used before, to which she would need $300 this time. Again, I was reluctant to buy her more Google Play cards, since I wasn't expecting there to be another test involved, but I didn't want to let her down at all, so I bought more of the Google Play cards while sticking to my monthly budget. Just like before, I scratched off the cards and took pictures of the codes for her to use after purchasing them myself, and she was then able to use the cards to purchase the digital books to help her study for the final test. Eventually, time passed like usual, and Rose told me she received the results of the test with some excellent news to share with me. She had actually won the car, and it was all thanks in part to me helping her with the tests. Now, the only part we were able to focus on was having the car transported all the way from my hometown from her company in California. I was able to receive the message from her boss about the address to send the car to my home, to which I was able to provide, meaning I would be able to get my very own personal vehicle with someone teaching me how to drive. In order to do so, however, I would need help Rose with the shipping costs of the delivery of the brand new car, which cost about $2,000 to have it shipped where I live. But I explained to her I don't have that much money on me at the moment. She then explained to me that she would be able to help chip in with some of the delivery fee, and that the most I would have to spend would be no more than $600, to which she would be more than welcome to accept via Google Play cards, and she would be able to pay me back whenever she's able to get paid from the company that she works for. At around this time, I had about $900 in my bank account after receiving my Social Security payment for the month due to how much I've been able to spend for my girlfriend. And I didn't have enough to buy food that I thought would normally spend money on, since I would normally go out to eat on a regular basis. So I decided to just buy foods that would cost about $1 to spend, like ramen noodles, which would be enough to hold me off until my next paycheck came the following month. During this time, I started spending money on the cards by purchasing them from multiple stores in my hometown. Since the people who worked at my local CVS store had told me not to purchase any more Google Play cards due to how many I've been buying at a time, they were actually concerned that what was happening to me due to me not knowing that I was becoming used in a scam at this entire time. So I had to go to other stores in my hometown that were able to sell them to me instead. This sort of thing could actually happen regularly from time to time, and in which Rose had asked me to buy more gift cards to help her with other things, such as purchasing food for herself and her granny, as well as a gift for her birthday that had taken place in September, and I was spending so much of my money to the point where my bank account would be almost empty by the end of the month before my SSI disability payments would be added immediately right after the month was over. It was in around October, after having spent so much money on the supposed delivery of my brand new car that I was waiting to arrive to my home, that I'd also been waiting for Rose to come fly to my hometown whenever it eventually arrived. But then something unexpected just happened. Rose started suffering from kidney-related diseases and had to be sent to the hospital. After hearing about this, I became really worried and sad for her, especially since we haven't been able to see each other except through photos that we took and shared on our smartphones, while also calling each other directly on the phone now and then. And I didn't want her to die before we were finally able to meet in person. For the time being, I couldn't do anything else but wait to hear back from her to see if she was able to recover. Several hours later, I was able to get a text from Rose at the hospital that she was taken to, and she told me that she had been treated for her illness in the nick of time, to which I became relieved to hear about. However, she needed $200 to pay the drugs that would be used to help her recover. So naturally, I would be able to buy some gift cards to help her pay for them, which I did regardless of how much money I had in my account at the time. Sometime later, after she had just recovered from her illness, Rose told me that her granny had become quite ill to the point where she needed to transfer some money to help pay for her hospital fee so that she would be able to live again. Of course, I told her that I did not have that much money on me because of how much I was able to spend for her earlier, but she told me not to worry about it, since she had other relatives in her family that would be more than nice enough to help her, and she needed my help to transfer the money to the hospital where her granny was staying. At this point, I had already believed everything that she had told me, since I had pretty much been blinded by love and there was no turning back for me now, so I ended up doing the unthinkable. I gave her my bank account information so that she could transfer the money to me, which was about $3,000 that I would be able to send to the account that she told me about. As soon as I was able to have the money added to my account, which took place the day before Halloween, I was able to transfer it to the account of the hospital where Rosa's granny is kept, and I was given the name of the account holder and numbers to transfer the money. I went to the bank and gave them the information about the transfer, but then something terrible happened to me right after that. My savings account had been frozen immediately after sharing the information with the bank. I was really shocked and confused about what was going on because this meant that I would no longer be able to withdraw any more of my money in my account for an indefinite period of time. I then contacted Rose about what had happened, and she asked to see if I could talk to the bank manager about having them unfreeze my account, which I decided to do the very next day, since the bank was about to close in a couple of hours after having already arrived, and I had to walk all the way back to my home while it was raining outside as well. Around this time, my mother was able to find out about my savings being frozen, since she was also able to share my account with me at the time, to which she was then able to ask what was going on. I ended up telling her about me having a girlfriend that I was able to meet off of POF, Plenty of Fish, and I also explained that I had tried to transfer money to help her granny that was sick, but my mother argued with me while trying to tell me that I had been scammed the whole time, to which I did not believe her at first due to how often I've been able to chat with her on the phone. And I even gave her the phone number so that she can chat with Rose herself, which she did. I didn't quite know what happened after that, but by the time my mother was going to bed, everything seemed to be okay, since I had received a message from Rose explaining that she had chatted with my mother and that she was pretty nice after being able to let her know her despite the heated argument that had taken place earlier. The very next day, which also happened to be Halloween, I went to the bank that morning so that I can ask them to unfreeze my bank account, to which I talked to the bank manager in her office, who explained to me that my recent transfer was actually going to be used in part of a scam, which I still didn't believe because I thought I was trying to help someone that cared so much about me. And I asked if they could follow the account that transferred the money to my account, which they were able to do so, and I wouldn't be able to get the results until a little bit later that day. So I decided to go back home, carry on with my daily life as usual. My mother was able to come back home from work in the middle of the afternoon when she got a call from the bank about my savings account after getting the results. And she talked to me, letting me know that the money that had been transferred to my account actually belonged to other people who had been scammed in a similar manner, and the money was then sent back to the rightful owners as a result. This also meant that the woman I thought was my very lucky first and probably only girlfriend, Rose, had actually been a scammer that had been using me all along, which really broke my heart after hearing about this from my mother, since I always thought that she loved and cared for me ever since we first met. And so I texted Rose about what was going on before blocking her phone number. Since my mother was able to do the exact same thing on her phone afterwards, I just felt like wanting to do nothing but cry for the rest of the evening. Needless to say, this was the worst way to spend Halloween, especially since it happens to be one of my favorite holidays and that I love to celebrate every year. And I ended up spending it that year getting my heart shattered by a woman who probably didn't love me at all. I never did have the card delivered to me either, even after I had provided my home address to the so-called company. And I also never got back any of the money that I had spent for Rose after she promised to pay me back for quite some time now. Shortly afterwards, I was able to go back to the bank and open up a new account after having my old one still frozen, to which I decided to open a checking account this time, and I made sure to contact with Social Security office about my new account, though they still were able to send my monthly payment to my savings account before having it transferred along with the rest of my money to my checking account afterwards, and I was able to continue receiving money each month without any problems at all. As for online dating, I've decided to give up on doing it after what had happened. And I don't even care if I remain single for the rest of my life, especially since I was able to learn a valuable lesson after that. Do not give money to anyone that you meet on the internet unless you are able to meet them in person and that they are not trying to take advantage of you in any way. Thank you very much for being able to share my story. And I also hope that everyone else who hears my story doesn't end up falling for someone they meet on the internet in the exact same way I did. especially if they turn out to be a scammer at the end. And we'd like to thank this guy for telling his story. We're so sorry to hear what he went through. This goes to show that scammers truly are heartless and do not care who they hurt. If you'd like to share your story, I can narrate it for you on a video. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can contact us on Facebook under the page Scamming Scammers Action, or you can email us at scammingscammers@gmail.com, and I will be happy to narrate your story, or we can video chat on Skype or on the phone, and you can tell the story in your own words. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.